I'm Ricky.
And I'm Joe, and that's Cooper moving around in the background. And this is Season 5, Episode 2 of the Beer and Broadband podcast, where we are going to talk about a braggot, Joe's first braggot. And for those of you who don't know what a braggot is, that is a beer that is honeyed in the fermentation process. So it's, half honey, half malt. But it is... I forgot to tell you what date, as if you don't know. It is going to come out, this episode is going to come out on April 11th, 2022. And it is our second episode, but we're going to talk about Melona now. Melona is I made 2 gallons of an oatmeal stout from a kit, but I decided that I didn't want to just leave it as an oatmeal stout. I wanted it to be also a braggot, so I added honey into it that raised the ABV up to about 7%. And Ricky's had some, so tell me what you think.
Yeah, I mean, it's brewed very well. No off flavors, very smooth. I'm not sure how highly I would rate the kit itself because it contains the ingredients.
Yeah.
It's not bad. It's all the flavors are kind of in the middle.
Yeah.
They're there. You can kind of taste the oatmeal and that darkness and all that, but they're not spread out enough for it to have like a really good feel to it. So it just comes off as like a nice sippable alcohol. So, this might be a really good kit for someone trying to like beer for the first time because, they're going to get a product that is drinkable, because we've had some kits that when we got done with it, we're like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
But I think it could certainly be better.
Well, so there is a different flavor because I've made this kit before. Mm-hmm. The oatmeal stout is just kind of middling. That's why I wanted to add something to it. The wildflower honey that I added to this, I feel I added an extra flavor on the tail end that you don't get from the kit itself.
Okay.
So that little bit of the kit itself is just kind of sweet and a little creamy, right? Mm-hmm. And then at the end, you get this kind of added. I don't even know how to describe it. It is unique to honey. There's kind of a.
It might have some of that lightness.
Yeah, something at the end that's almost like pillowy.
Yeah.
That comes in, and that is what the honey added to it.
Okay.
So I added the honey in the brewing process, but I didn't add it in the heated process. So I didn't invert the sugars or anything like that. All I did was mix it into to a little bit of the warm mash, and then put it in after it had become the brew.
Yeah.
I put it in the fermenter at that point.
So I'm going to be sacrilegious, and I have a little bit of the Bochet left from last episode.
Yeah.
I'm going to toss that in there.
To see what that does?
Yeah, because, the Bochet had, as we talked about, some of that nice oakiness, had a little bit of extra sweetness to it that was more of a rummy sort of, more alcoholic sweetness than just sugar, if that makes any sense.
So one thing that I do know that happens to this is you let it set for a little bit, and it, unfortunately, you've
That's really good,
changed
though.
it. It is.
Yeah, that's it.
Oh yeah. I'll take some.
That because the other, the Bochet was so sweet in the beginning, this gives it that extra depth. So it's got flavor at the front, it's got flavor in the middle, it's got a little bit of that lightness in the back. Yeah.
So that means that the next time I do this, I'm gonna have to use buckwheat honey.
Yeah, that might be a good call.
Yeah, I've or I could do it with some avocado honey. That might also be really good.
Yeah, I've heard the avocado honey when you brew with it leaves a lot of creaminess behind, and a lot of people like to put that in things they're going to try and have more beer-like quantities or qualities. So yeah, that could be worth a decent shot.
Well, I've got some avocado honey. It was expensive.
Oh yeah,
but I got a pound of it, so we can possibly make it into a back sweetening agent or a flavoring agent of something to bring something out. So something to think about.
Yeah.
But this one of the things that I think about this as an experiment, because in the YouTube channel that I started and then like haven't really followed through with, I called myself the Accidental Brewer. And this is one of those accidental, like kind of discoveries that I found that, okay, what I've heard people make braggots. I'm going to try to follow a recipe or closely to make something that's a beer and honey, kind of thing in fermentation and see what that ends up being. And it actually ends up being really good. Like to the point that I am very interested in doing this again.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I think everybody that brews should at least try it once, especially if you make beer, if you're interested.
Yeah, I really think, honey as a sweetening agent has a lot of very unique properties to it. There's a lot of things you can do with it. Once I get moved into my house and have a more permanent setup, I'm actually going to get a second vessel and try making something called June, which is essentially kombucha made with honey.
Oh.
A lot of people say it's very difficult because you have to train your bacteria for it. I'm not how sure I believe them about that, or if that's just marketing so they can sell you scobies more than once. But I do want to see what that's like.
Yeah, I'd be interested in how that turns out. I think I actually, now that this is like opening up, it's been sitting out for a second. I think I actually like this more, sitting here. Now I've had this before. I've kind of forgotten what it tasted like because I brewed so many things over the fall that I kind of have forgotten a little bit of what the flavors are. But I think this is a good experiment. It was a really fun thing to brew because it blended two of my favorite things to make. And unlike the sizer that I made, which was fairly simple, which I'm going to do that again. I've actually got a bunch of honey. I've got like 12, 24. I've got about like 50 pounds of honey in the closet in there, and I'm just going to go through all that. Most of it's wildflower honey, and I'm going to make a bunch of different types of brews. And one of those things I want to make is a sizer.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about ZSH. Are you familiar with what ZSH is?
Some casual Google searching when I saw it show up on the list of topics. I could use a deeper explanation.
Okay. So you have bash, right? The bash shell is the born again shell, or whatever you use, CSH, anything like that. There's all like different shells. So corn shell, whatever. There's fish. Fish is a shell that you can use, but they're all shells that you can use to be able to get into your Unix, Linux system. Well, I've kind of migrated over at work to using an M1 Mac. And I knew that Macs had like kind of done this conversion from using bash, which they had like this really ancient version of bash on them compared to most Linux systems. But they had moved from bash to using ZSH. Now, polarizing, I'm not a fan of either thing. Like they're a tool that I use, and knowing how to use them is fantastic. I love being able to do work in the shell and at the command line to be able to make, things happen on my computers, whether it's automations or scripts or whatever. But I've had to start using this more often. And so I started using OMyZSH on another computer that I had that was like a secondary testing machine. And I like it. And so I was like, well, if I'm going to have to use ZSH, I want colors and I want to be able to like do my shell like a certain way. And now, man, I'm just like customizing everything and getting in and like changing stuff. And I mean, it's the same thing as bash without some of the extra layers. And there's a difference. I know there's a difference, but from the way that I use this, they're almost the same. I can't use some of my bash scripting like stuff that I would normally do. And my bash RC is not exactly compatible with my ZSH RC. So I'm having to like kind of like find the places in there where I can use aliases and things like that. But all that said, I've got it colorized. I've got everything going. I even found iTerm 2 on this Mac that gives me a lot of the same functionalities that Xshell did for my Windows computer. And then, of course, I'm using Bash on my Linux-based machines. So transitioning between the two hasn't been as bad as I thought it would be. I don't know. Like, you don't even have any experience with this, do you?
No, I mean, I've never used it. But,
Yeah.
you know, I did run a Mac for several years because I had one for work that we did testing on and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, but, I mean, you ran it, but you didn't, like, use it as your main machine, right?
I mean, it was certainly never like what I was taking meetings on, but there was for quite a while there. It was my test environment for all the NSO stuff we were doing and things like that.
Well, but you're, like, you were using it as, like, a server to do things. You weren't, like sitting down and, like that was your like main machine, because you've pretty much always used Windows and that for your like main like getting everything done kind of machine, right?
Yeah, so normally what I would do is, you know, I had that Mac set up, so if I was doing something in NSO that needed testing, I would write a lot of it on Windows, but then any of the testing that I would need to do before it went up on the servers would go over to that Mac.
Yeah.
Then I meant to do that with the we got those nice little nooks a while back, and I set those up, but we haven't had a need to use a real like pre-dev testing server since then. So it's there and set up, and I log into it from time to time, but it never really took that place. Once I didn't need the Mac anymore, it's because we had, you know, really good dev servers set up. So I just didn't kind of have that need as much for the one in the middle.
Yeah, and I mean that's legitimate. I don't think I've never really been like that impressed with the way that Apple does stuff. I mean, we used to use a Mac for recording this podcast, and now we're using a Windows machine because I had some audio issues with getting the drivers for my Focusrite to like load on a Linux machine. And the Windows machine is a little bit smaller than the Linux machine that I was carrying around with me. But all that said, the Mac just kind of like, if I was a person that was just using a web browser or doing like general stuff, but to do engineering work, I just could not get it to work the way that I wanted to.
Yeah.
It was always causing me problems, always crashing, always having issues. And there are people that don't have that experience, right? But that's not been the case with this thing that I've had for like the last like 2 weeks. We'll see if that ends up being like continuing on. I'm not hopping on it, but being in the Z shell, I'm gaining a new appreciation of it. There are some things, like I said, that I'm not as happy with, so I traditionally have used Bash like the whole time that I've done things with Unix and Linux, and it's kind of interesting to use a different shell and be forced to use a different shell. I mean, I could go back to Bash, but it's not native, and I have to like make it switch and do all this other stuff. And I could make it switch back to Bash, but it's the native one. So I'm going to try to like use it like this and see how it goes. I'm also going to talk probably about my M1 Mac experience a little bit later on after I've had a couple of weeks playing with it.
See how that works out.
Yeah. It could be good. It could be really good. So far, it's been really good. That's about the best I can say. I'm pretty happy with it. So let's talk about what we've done with crypto over the break. I don't think you've done anything, have you?
Not really. I mean, I did set some things up. I've done a little bit of mining through Blanket on the site. The one you sent me, you probably know what I'm talking about. Nice Hash, I think it was.
Oh, yeah, Nice Hash.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I've done some Nice Hash stuff, and, you know, nowhere near as much as you have, definitely. Because I've kind of just been doing it passively. Like when a machine is sitting still, I'm like, oh, I could run that for a few hours and let that grab a little coin and see how that all's going out.
Yeah, and you're using it like on a Windows machine, so you're not running like Nice Hash OS. So you're just mining like and then getting Bitcoin as like a return for it, right? Yeah, which is good. There's nothing wrong with that. I quit using Nice Hash for a little bit. I mean, not because like I wanted to try mining some other things. I've been mining RavenCoin, and then there's a coin called Avian that you can still mine with your CPU. And so I've been mining that. and I've been mining some Ton coin. So Ton is a staking coin that's not really on markets too much, but it's, kind of like every other staking coin. It's decentralized and it's going to run like a DeFi network and blah, 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 right? But I thought it was kind of interesting that they had made some they had generated some Ton coins, and then they had an algorithm to mine them. And I wanted to see kind of what that was like. And since I have a couple of GPUs, I have like 4 gaming computers at this point, some older GPUs and some newer ones, but they'll all mine fairly well. I threw that at it, and I mined a couple $100 worth of it. But it's an interesting coin overall because everything is pretty much controlled, at least in the coin pool that I did, and I really couldn't find any other way to do this. Everything is pretty much controlled through Telegram. So you can go into it and talk to a bot, and the bot will tell you your balance or something like that in your mining pool, and then you can put it into a wallet if you want to. Yeah. You can withdraw it, which I thought was like a kind of novel way to do that. And at this point, it's a couple of hundred coin that I have in a wallet that is sitting there just kind of, not doing anything. But it was a fun experiment. I'm still kind of stuck on like either using NiceHash with all my machines because that kind of lets you remotely control them and all this stuff, or using like something where I have a remote desktop into my machines. I haven't quite got to the point where I'm using like some of the other software that's out there. But yeah, I mean, over the break, like I had some fun experiments. I even got to mining stuff on my phone. I had a friend who was like, "Hey, you should join the Pi network." I'm not sure that that's not a scam, but
yeah, I'll admit I never signed up for that. I looked into it. It's like, well, no one's saying this is a scam, but man, that feels really pyramid. That like you get more Pi, the more people with you sign up for the Pi, and they get their daily Pi. And
so the more people you have in your pool, it's not so much. So like it's reciprocal.
Yeah,
so it couldn't be a pyramid scheme because the person at the top isn't getting all the money. Everybody's getting it within that pool. It's distributed by having more people, but you can't sell it anywhere. It's not something that you can put anywhere else. However, it's kind of an interesting thing to learn about mining because like a kid, let's say you have like a teenager who's interested in mining or cryptocurrency, and they come to you and they say, "How do I do this?" Well, let me show you how to do this like thing. So from that perspective, I think it's kind of neat. From the perspective of, can you actually do anything with it for the energy that you're expending on there and the advertisements they've started putting on the thing? Not so much, not yet. You can't do anything with it. It's supposed to be going to mainnet though, so I mean, phones aren't secure, so it's not like I'm saying that they're not doing something nefarious. I can't see anything that Google's not doing that they would be doing.
Yeah, with it. I mean, that's true. You're not any more exposed than you are if you're consuming any other of these large services.
Right. And if I get like 200-300 coin out of it, and those actually be worth, $3 or $4 each, that's a couple $100. I don't mind that. I'm getting some sort of return on investment. If they never end up being worth anything, yeah, it's a scam.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's basically what it comes down to, right?
Yeah, it's whether or not that'll ever really materialize.
Supposedly they're going to get listed here in the next year on our market. So.
Yeah, but I mean, to your point, the number of coins that hit over $1 is minuscule compared to how many coins actually go in.
Yep.
So, if it was worth your time at 1 cent, I'd maybe be more comfortable with it.
Would it be worth my time at 1 cent? I mean, the amount of coin that I'd have right now would be worth very little. I'd have to get a lot more people that were in my friends list, quote unquote. Mm-hmm. I'd have to get a lot more friend face friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. IT crowd joke. Anybody out there laughing? Maybe. But yeah, so I think the one that I find the most interesting is Avian. Do you remember me talking about that?
Yeah. I did look into that one for a little while.
Yeah, it's a fork of RavenCoin. And the thing I find the most interesting about that one is it seems to have the most promise to be something that's at least as profitable as RavenCoin, especially since you can mine it while you're mining another thing on your GPU. You can mine it on your CPU right now. It won't be that way forever, but you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're worth like a couple cents, I think, right now. They're barely worth anything, but if they're easy enough to mine that you can mine millions of them before the next event that happens, and then they would be, worth, maybe more, because they'll be more difficult to mine, and you won't be able to mine them on a CPU at that point, I don't think. So, at least I don't think. So I've kind of dominated this because I've done most of the like stuff. What are your thoughts on any of the mining that you've been doing? Like,
I kind of just do it passively every now and then. I like to kind of check in and see what the return rates are. I really view it more as data collection than investment, because my personal opinion is long term, I think we probably are as a society looking at something more like crypto. I don't think a lot of the traditional currencies, especially as we're looking at like all the economic problems we've been having the last couple of years, are probably a long-term solution. But I also don't believe probably any of the cryptocurrencies that exist right now will be that alternative currency. So a lot of it is me looking and trying to learn about those technologies and seeing kind of like how they work. Because I think, even if it's decentralized, when something comes in, it's going to be like, okay, this is going to be a currency that everybody in the world can use. No one coin could really come in and fill that gap. Yeah. Ethereum's pretty close. I mean, maybe if they really keep working on Ethereum for the next couple of years, you could see something there. But like Bitcoin, even though it's the most adopted, the underlying technology on it can't really replace a lot of existing technologies around fiat currency.
Yeah, it's just not fast enough.
Yeah, it's not fast enough. It's got all sorts of issues. And and we've talked about, I think this last time we talked about crypto. There's a couple of cryptos that transaction times are super quick.
Yep.
But they have some other problems. There's no one crypto right now you could look at and say, boom, that's going to be it. I'm going to get ahead of the game. I'm going to have so much of that because that's going to be the new dollar someday.
Exactly. I think one of the benefits of it, it's fairly easy to move between cryptos. So like if you knew something was really hitting off, you could buy some fairly easily with, trading just on like a wallet like Exodus or something like that. But yeah, I mean, it's still the Wild West.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the gold doubloons of the modern currency. But I mean, at some point somebody's going to have 1 million RavenCoin in a sunken, buried in a well chest of crypto wallets that's full of, whatever, and somebody is going to dig it up and be like, oh, this was a, ancient currency, blah, 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 blah. And, just like we do with, doubloons and things like that. So,
maybe. I think we have really saturated the market. So I think a couple of them, like, will Bitcoin ever be completely worthless? No. If Ethereum doesn't get picked up, will it ever be completely worthless? No. You're right. There will be some level of, hey, here's these things I have. They become like this collector's thing to it. But, RavenCoin, Avian, probably not.
Probably not. Yeah.
Maybe somewhere there will be like a crypto exhibit, and they'll have one or two of every coin that you can scroll through and see, look at how many existed, So
I meant more like somebody will print it out onto like paper. And buried in their backyard, like people used to do with Confederate money or something like that, Yeah, but you're right. There's going to be so many of them that there's probably 95% of them are going to be worthless at some point in time in the future. Get them while you can.
Yeah, I mean, the people doing crypto for money, I do think it's still a decent avenue for short-term investment. I mean, people that are getting a couple coins together and then they, it went up in price, so I'm going to sell it and cash that out into something else. Yeah. There's certainly people that make money on crypto, no doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. But
yeah, I think that's still, as long as we've had it, we think, Bitcoin's been around for more than 10 years now, I think, that, it's this big technology that people are adopting quickly and it's really taken off. It's still so early.
Yeah.
Because there's a big difference between people adoption. And even then, people adoption is generally kind of the nerdy, more technical people. But, the people adoption to the enterprise adoption.
I mean, we had fiat currencies for thousands and thousands of years before we really like figured out a way to kind of mesh all that together in a global way. And having cryptocurrencies is probably an evolution of that, but not the end of it. I definitely think. I mean, that would be a little ridiculous. Although I'm a little bit more optimistic that we're probably going to have a few that are going to stick around than just one. I just think that it's probably not going to be in the way that we consider it to be. Like they're gonna change and evolve in the way that we're already seeing them change and evolve. NFTs, all that other stuff, right?
Yeah.
Well, this has been Season 5, Episode 2 of the Beer and Broadband Podcast. We have Twitter and Patreon and all those other fun things that we can do with podcasts these days, but we'd love for you to engage with us in each of those locations, or just, on our YouTube channel that I kind of forgot that I post to whenever I upload these things.
We accidentally forgot to post on the YouTube. Accidental Brewer, it all works out.
Well, no, not Accidental Brewer. We actually have a Beer and Broadband YouTube channel.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
That's a good point. We did talk about that one time a long time ago.
I've up all of our videos, all of our podcasts have been uploaded to it as like a audio video thing. But I kind of forgot about it. So like I've never mentioned it on here. Like you can get us from like all the other podcast places, iTunes, all those other things. YouTube, just forgot that it existed. That's my bad. But anyways, we'd love to hear from you and give us some ideas about stuff you'd love for us to talk about or whatever. And we'll catch you next time.